The house smelled of rosemary and seared butter, a scent that once meant love. Ethan moved through the kitchen like a conductor, before an audience that no longer clapped. Every motion was deliberate, the flick of the wrist as he plated the salmon, the slow pour of wine that caught the candlelight just right. 10 years of marriage, and he still knew exactly how Claire liked her dinner, or at least how she used to. The table gleamed under the soft amber glow. 2 plates, 2 glasses, 1 centerpiece of white roses, her favorite. He'd ordered them specially, just as he had every year. Tradition mattered. Details mattered. That was the key to everything. He checked the time again. 3 p.m. Claire was late. She was always late now. It used to bother him less, but lately every minute she stole from him felt like defiance. Ethan smiled to himself, thin, practiced, empty. He could already picture her entrance. A quick apology. The smell of her perfume lingering too long. That strained smile that never reached her eyes. He adjusted his cufflinks. Silver, engraved with their initials, and glanced toward the hallway mirror. For a brief moment he didn't recognize the man staring back. His reflection looked calm, confident, but beneath that veneer was something else, something colder. When the door finally opened, the sound broke the stillness like glass. "You went all out," Claire said softly, setting her keys down. Her voice was cautious, almost rehearsed. "Of course," Ethan replied, forcing warmth into his tone. 10 years deserves perfection. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat the air thickened, not with love, but with the weight of everything unsaid. She smiled faintly. "It's beautiful, Ethan." He watched her take her seat, fingers brushing the rim of her wine glass. "I wanted tonight to be special," he murmured. Claire nodded, unaware of the storm behind his composed gaze. Outside, thunder rumbled somewhere far off, a faint warning of what was coming. Ethan lifted his glass. "To us," he said, and in his mind he added silently, for the last time. The candlelight had long faded, leaving behind cold plates and untouched wine. Claire sat across from Ethan, eyes lowered, tracing the rim of her glass as though afraid to meet his gaze. The silence between them wasn't new. It had been building for months, layer by invisible layer, until it felt like another presence in the room. Dinner was nice, she finally said. Her voice was polite, careful, the way one might speak to a stranger. Ethan smiled. Just enough to be convincing. "I'm glad you think so." He watched her closely. Every movement, every breath. He used to love her absent-minded gestures, the way she would hum while cooking, the way her laughter used to fill the house. Now each small action felt like a clue he needed to decode. Who was she texting when she thought he wasn't looking? Why did she leave earlier, come home later, smile less? In the quiet that followed, his mind replayed moments from before. The first time she had avoided his touch. The argument about the trip she forgot to mention. The way her perfume had changed. Little fractures, small but deep. Claire's phone buzzed on the counter, the sound slicing through the air. She moved too fast to grab it. "Just work," she said quickly, turning her back to him. Her thumb lingered on the screen longer than it should have. Ethan leaned back in his chair. "At this hour?" She hesitated. "Deadlines don't care about time." He didn't respond. He didn't have to. The tension pulsed between them like static before a storm. When she finally left the room, Ethan's eyes followed her reflection in the dark window. For a brief second he saw her smile faintly at the message glowing on her screen. Soft, secret, meant for someone else. He turned off the remaining candles one by one, his expression unreadable. In the dying light, a quiet thought took root. If she could lie so easily, so could he. And that night, as thunder rolled in the distance, Ethan began to plan. Claire couldn't sleep. The storm outside pressed against the windows, and every flash of lightning seemed to expose the ghosts she'd tried to bury. Ethan's steady breathing beside her did nothing to calm the tremor beneath her skin. She stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of 10 years, of what she'd done and what she'd hidden. It had been 3 years ago. A conference in Boston. One too many glasses of wine. A man named Daniel who made her laugh when she hadn't laughed in months. It wasn't love, more like a desperate gasp for air in a marriage already suffocating her. It lasted only a few weeks, then ended with a tearful goodbye and a promise never to speak again. She'd erased his messages, deleted every trace. Ethan never found out, or so she thought. But lately, something had shifted. Her jewelry box had been moved. Her favorite mug, one Ethan never used, appeared cracked one morning. The framed photo of their wedding had fallen face down twice in a week. Small things, too trivial to accuse anyone of, yet too precise to be random. Then there were the calls, always from a blocked number, always silence on the other end, once faint breathing. At first, she'd brushed it off as coincidence, maybe even her own anxiety. But now, lying beside Ethan, she felt watched even here in their bed. Her hand drifted to her phone on the nightstand. Another message blinked on the screen, unknown number again. She hesitated, heart hammering before opening it. One sentence glared back. "Does he know yet?" The phone slipped from her fingers. "Claire?" Ethan murmured groggily beside her. "Everything okay?" She forced a smile he couldn't see. "Just a bad dream." He rolled over, already half asleep. Claire turned toward the window, pulse racing. The lightning illuminated her reflection. Wide eyes, pale face, trembling lips. Somewhere deep down, she knew the truth. The past wasn't buried. It was waking up, and whoever was digging it up knew exactly where to look. Ethan had always prided himself on being meticulous. Every project at work, every schedule, every minor household repair, nothing escaped his control. But lately, his precision had turned inward, darkening into obsession. Control, he realized, wasn't about fixing things anymore. It was about ending them perfectly. He sat alone in his study, the glow of the laptop screen casting his face in cold blue light. Tabs lined the top of the browser. Non-traceable toxins, accidental death staging, digital footprint deletion. His fingers moved slowly, deliberately, as if the act itself were sacred. He wasn't angry anymore. Anger was sloppy. This required clarity. In his mind, love and punishment had fused into one clean line. Both acts of devotion. Claire had been restless lately, distracted. The late-night messages, the sudden tension whenever her phone buzzed. All confirmation that his suspicions weren't paranoia, but prophecy. He'd watched her from the shadows of their home, studying her patterns like a detective might study a killer. Except in this story, Ethan decided, he would be both. He began experimenting quietly. He tested how long it took for wine to mask the faint bitterness of powdered residue. He deleted search histories, wiped the router logs, bought burner accounts under a fake name. Each step, each calculation made him feel calmer, as if the chaos of his marriage could finally be reduced to something measurable. At night, lying beside Claire, he rehearsed conversations in his head. Her final moments, her confusion, her last breath. He imagined her eyes widening, not with fear, but with understanding. "You made me do this," he would think. "You left me no choice." A knock at the door startled him. Claire's voice floated in softly. "Ethan, you're still up?" He minimized the window. "Just work stuff," he said evenly. She lingered. "You should rest." "I will." When she walked away, Ethan reopened the file labeled simply, "Plan," and under the list of steps, one final line blinked back at him in bold letters. A reminder, not of guilt, but of purpose. Perfection leaves no trace. But he was wrong. Rain slammed against the windows in furious rhythm, lightning slicing the darkness into trembling fragments. The house felt smaller that night, the walls closer, the air too heavy to breathe. Ethan stood by the counter, pouring wine into 2 glasses, each movement deliberate, ceremonial. Claire sat at the dining table, her phone resting face down beside her. Neither had spoken for nearly an hour. Thunder rolled. She flinched. "He didn't. You've been distant," Ethan said finally, his tone calm but taut, like a thread ready to snap. Claire's eyes flicked up. "I'm tired, Ethan, that's all." "From work?" He let out a low, humorless laugh. "Or from me?" Her face tightened. "What are you trying to say?" He placed the glasses down between them. "I think you've been lying to me." The words hung there, pulsing in the charged silence. Outside, rain poured harder, drowning the sound of her uneven breath. "I don't know what you're talking about," she whispered. "Yes, you do." His voice sharpened. "The calls. The messages. The look on your face every time I walk into the room. I see it, Claire. I'm not stupid." She rose from her chair, trembling. "You're imagining things." You've been different lately, paranoid. He stepped closer, his expression unreadable. You think I don't notice when something's wrong in my own house? Please, she said softly, tears forming. You're scaring me. He stopped, inhaled slowly, then exhaled. When he spoke again, his tone was calm, almost gentle. I don't want to fight. Not tonight. He handed her the glass of wine. Let's start over. Claire hesitated. The wind howled through the cracks of the old windows. She took the glass anyway, needing something, anything to anchor her shaking hands. Ethan watched her lift it to her lips. For a moment his heart raced, not with love, but with terrible anticipation. Then guilt flickered, brief but real. She chose this, he told himself. She made me do this. Claire set the glass down, untouched. Ethan, she said quietly, her voice almost drowned by the storm. What are you not telling me? Lightning lit his face, pale, hollow, resolved. He smiled faintly. Nothing that isn't already too late. And outside, the storm answered for them both. Sunlight crept through the curtains in thin, indifferent lines. The storm had passed, leaving the house unnaturally still. Ethan opened his eyes slowly, disoriented by the silence. Then he turned and saw her. Claire lay motionless beside him, eyes half open, lips pale. The wine glass from the night before sat tipped over on the bedside table, its dark stain spreading across the sheets like a wound. For a moment Ethan simply stared, his pulse steady, his mind quiet. It was done. He sat up, studying her face. She looked peaceful, almost beautiful. The tension gone, the questions silenced. He reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her forehead, a gesture that might have been tender once. Now it was only ritual. He moved through the next steps with detached precision. He wiped the glasses, placing one in the kitchen sink. He opened Claire's phone, typing out a final message to himself. I'm sorry. Ethan, I can't do this anymore. Then he sent it, deleted the thread, and dropped the phone by her side. Next came the staging. He carried her down the stairs, careful not to bruise, careful not to tremble. He spilled another glass of wine halfway down, let it shatter against the floor. An accident, he imagined, during a dizzy fall. He rehearsed the story in his head. She slipped. She'd been drinking. I tried to save her. He dialed 911 but didn't press call, not yet. He needed one more look, one last check. Everything was perfect. Clean, believable. He allowed himself a breath, steady and controlled. Then his eyes caught something small, insignificant, or so it seemed. Claire's wedding ring lay not on her finger but on the nightstand upstairs, next to his laptop. He froze. For the first time, his confidence faltered. A single detail, tiny, human, easily missed, pulsed in his mind like a siren, but Ethan dismissed it. He had no room for doubt. He pressed call, and upstairs, unnoticed, the laptop's camera light blinked once before going dark. Detective Maria Rhodes arrived just after dawn, the gray light soft against the edges of flashing sirens. The house smelled faintly of wine and rain, not of grief. She stepped inside without a word, scanning the entryway, the scattered shards of glass. The limp body covered by a sheet near the stairs. Ethan sat on the couch, pale but composed, his hands clasped together. It was an accident, he said before she even asked. His voice was low, practiced. She slipped. I tried to catch her. Maria nodded slowly, jotting down a note. You were both home last night? Yes, we had dinner. It was our anniversary. Her eyes flicked to the half-empty bottle on the counter, the two glasses beside it, one clean, one still stained dark. You didn't drink? I poured it for her. I had a headache. She didn't respond. Instead, she crouched beside the broken glass, studying how the shards fanned outward. Too neat, too deliberate. Her mind registered patterns, the kind that told quiet stories people didn't mean to tell. When she rose, she turned toward Claire's phone, bagged by the first responder. Do you mind if I check something? Ethan hesitated. Of course not. Maria scrolled briefly, her expression unreadable. Then she looked up. You said you found her around 6? Yes, just after I woke up. Her eyes lingered on the screen. Interesting. There's a call made from this phone at 5:47 a.m. She held it up, the display still faintly glowing. To your number. Ethan froze. That must be a mistake. Maybe it redialed somehow. Maybe, Maria said softly, but her tone carried weight. She slipped the phone into an evidence bag. We'll take a closer look. As she left the room, her gaze swept over the space one final time. The wine stain, the untouched breakfast dishes, the faint smell of cleaning solvent in the air. Outside, the rain began again, soft and steady, and behind her, Ethan exhaled shakily, his fingers twitching, his perfect composure cracking for the first time. The day after the funeral, the house felt hollow, stripped of sound, stripped of warmth. Ethan sat in the living room surrounded by sympathy cards and untouched food, his hands folded neatly in his lap. Everyone had come and gone. Everyone believed him. Almost everyone. Detective Maria Rhodes hadn't called it an accident yet. She'd been polite, professional, even kind, but her eyes said otherwise. They studied everything. That morning, she called him in for a routine update. Ethan arrived calm, polished, rehearsed. Yet as he entered the sterile, white-walled room, something in her expression unsettled him. Maria sat across from him, a manila folder open, her tone conversational. "We've been going through Mrs. Hale's phone records," she began, her gaze steady. "Mostly routine things. Messages, browser history, photos." Ethan nodded, forcing neutrality. "Of course. But there was something else." She slid her tablet across the table. The screen showed a small waveform, a recorded voice note, incomplete, time-stamped just hours before Claire's death. Ethan's throat went dry. "What is that?" Maria pressed play. A burst of static filled the room, then Claire's voice, trembling, rushed. "If anything happens to me..." The rest dissolved into silence. Ethan stared at the screen, his mind racing. The timing, the implication, and it couldn't be real. "That could mean anything," he said quickly. Maybe she was anxious. She'd been drinking. Maria tilted her head slightly. Possibly. But the recording was saved, not sent. Someone stopped it midway. He looked down, hiding the tightening of his jaw. Then maybe it corrupted. "Maybe," she said again, the same soft tone she used at the scene. "We'll send it to forensics to clean up." Sometimes the static hides more than it seems. Ethan's pulse hammered in his ears. As he left the station, the gray sky above seemed to press down on him. The wind hissed through the parking lot like a whisper. That night, back home, he sat in the dark and stared at Claire's phone on the evidence table in his memory. One message, one voice, and one mistake he hadn't seen coming. The house no longer felt like his. Every sound, the soft click of the thermostat, the hum of the fridge, the faint chirp from the motion sensors, seemed to mock him. Technology was supposed to make life easier, safer, controlled, but now it had turned into his silent enemy. Ethan sat in his study, eyes fixed on the monitor. He'd logged into the home security dashboard, something he hadn't done since installing it 2 years ago. Every camera feed showed what he expected, static, darkness, and timestamps from the stormy night. All except one, camera 7 hallway sensor. He frowned. He had forgotten that one existed. The timestamp blinked steadily, showing an auto-sync upload at 2:14 a.m., the exact time he'd carried Claire down the stairs. A cold shiver ran through him. He clicked on the feed. The playback opened with the flicker of lightning through the windows. Then there he was, clear as daylight, carrying Claire's limp body, his face half-shadowed but unmistakable. He saw himself placing her on the stairs, adjusting the scene, breaking the glass, stepping back to inspect his work. He stopped breathing. He slammed the laptop shut, heart pounding. "No, no, no," he muttered, reopening the system settings. The cloud sync showed completed. A single line of text mocked him. "Backup uploaded to Secure View Cloud." 2:17 a.m., Ethan's fingers flew across the keyboard. He found the backup link, tried to delete it. Access denied. He disabled the camera remotely, changed passwords, even unplugged the router. But the more he tried, the more the system resisted. Each denial, another heartbeat of panic. Then came the notification. A ping from his email. "Security footage backup completed. Your file is stored safely." He stared at the sender. Secure View support. His mind spiraled. The detective would have access to this soon. Maybe already did. He paced the room, muttering calculations, possibilities. He could say the footage was doctored, claim a technical glitch, but deep down he knew. Nothing digital ever truly disappeared. Lightning flared outside, illuminating the reflection in the dark window. His own pale face, haunted and cornered, he whispered to himself, voice trembling. Perfection leaves no trace, but somewhere in the cloud, the ghost of his crime was already alive, watching, waiting, ready to speak. Sleep had abandoned him days ago. The walls seemed to breathe, the air thick with echoes of her voice. Every corner of the house whispered her name, Claire. Sometimes it came as a sigh, other times as a laugh, low, knowing, cruel. Ethan sat in the dark, the glow from his computer bathing his face in ghostly light. The footage was gone now, or so he told himself. He had deleted every trace, every file, every backup. But when he closed his eyes, he could still see it. His own image frozen mid-motion, her limp hand brushing against the stairs, the truth looping endlessly in his mind. He'd begun hearing things, footsteps on the upper floor when he knew he was alone, the faint clinking of a wine glass from the kitchen, the whisper of fabric against the hallway wall. Once he caught her reflection in the mirror, pale, accusing, only to find his own eyes staring back, hollow and wild. The knock at the door startled him. Sharp, deliberate, Detective Maria Rhodes stepped inside, uninvited but unbothered. Her presence filled the room with quiet authority. "Mr. Hale," she said softly, setting a folder on the table. "We need to talk." Ethan smiled thinly, forcing calm. "Still chasing ghosts, Detective?" She didn't answer. She slid a tablet across the table and pressed play. The hallway footage appeared, grainy but unmistakable. Lightning flashed, and there he was, carrying Claire's body, arranging her on the stairs like a mannequin. Ethan froze, then let out a low chuckle. "This isn't real. You've manipulated it." Maria's tone was calm. "We recovered it directly from your system's cloud server. It's authenticated." His breathing quickened. "No," he said, shaking his head. She made me do it. She wanted to leave, to ruin me." "Ethan," she interrupted quietly, "no one made you." He stared at her, trembling, then laughed again, louder this time, manic and broken. "She deserved it," he shouted, the words tearing from his throat. "After everything she did, she deserved it." Maria didn't move. Ethan's voice cracked. "She lied," he whispered. "And I loved her anyway." Silence settled heavy between them. Maria closed the folder gently. "Love," she said almost to herself, "has never saved anyone from themselves." And Ethan, shaking, finally stopped smiling. The courtroom smelled faintly of paper and polished wood, clean, sterile, merciless. Cameras clicked softly as Ethan Hale entered, wearing a dark suit that fit too perfectly. His face was calm, almost serene, the face of a grieving husband wronged by circumstance. He'd practiced that expression for weeks, the hollow eyes, the slight tremor in his voice, the pause before every "I loved her." Reporters whispered his name like a myth, the man who'd lost his wife, the man accused of killing her. When he took the stand, Ethan spoke softly, each word measured. It wasn't supposed to happen. She'd been drinking. We argued, but I would never hurt her. His voice cracked just enough to sound human. She slipped. I panicked. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes. But I loved her. Some of the jury members shifted uncomfortably, moved by the performance. Maria watched from the gallery, silent, her expression unreadable. Then came the prosecution's turn. The prosecutor stood. "Detective Rhodes, please take the stand." Maria approached calmly, holding a small black speaker, the same one that had once sat on Ethan's bedside table. "We analyzed the device's system logs," she explained, her tone quiet but cutting. "It was voice-activated during the time of death." The prosecutor nodded. "And what did it record?" Maria looked at Ethan. For a brief second, pity flickered in her eyes, then vanished. She pressed play. Through the speakers came static, then a whisper, low, intimate, and venomous. "You should have never lied to me." The words hung in the air like smoke. The jury froze. Ethan's composure cracked for the first time. "That doesn't prove anything," he stammered. "I was angry. It was just words." But no one was listening. The jury's faces had hardened. Maria closed the speaker gently, her voice steady. "Sometimes," she said, "truth doesn't need to shout." Ethan looked down at his cufflinks, the same silver ones from their anniversary. For the first time, they felt like shackles. The gavel struck once. The sound echoed through the room, final, cold, irreversible. The courthouse emptied slowly after the verdict. Reporters lingered outside, voices muffled by the drizzle that had begun to fall. Inside, Detective Maria Rhodes sat alone in the quiet gallery, watching as officers led Ethan Hale away in handcuffs. He didn't resist, didn't speak, his head bowed like a man who had finally stopped pretending. The judge's words still echoed faintly in the room. Guilty of second-degree murder. Maria leaned back, eyes tracing the polished floor, her thoughts heavy but clear. Justice, she'd learned long ago, never arrived with celebration. It came quietly, like a slow exhale after holding your breath too long. Later, in her office, the case file sat open before her. Photographs, transcripts, fragments of a life shattered by obsession. The footage, the recordings, the messages, each piece had mattered. But one detail had sealed his fate, the smallest one of all. It wasn't the cloud upload. It wasn't the voice log. It was the cat. During the digital audit of the smart home, a technician had noticed an anomaly, a motion sensor triggered at 2:09 a.m. in the hallway, registered by the small pet tracker Ethan had forgotten to disable. The cat had moved past Claire's body minutes after Ethan claimed she'd fallen, which meant she had still been alive then, breathing, conscious, suffering, while he staged her death. That one line of code buried deep in the data logs told the truth he'd tried to erase. Maria closed the file, exhaling softly. Perfection, she murmured. Always forgets something human. Outside, thunder grumbled over the city, distant, weary. Across town, in the sterile silence of a holding cell, Ethan sat on the narrow cot, staring at his reflection in the metal sink. His cufflinks were gone now, but he could still feel their weight on his wrists. The voice in his head, her voice, whispered through the static of memory. You should have never lied to me. He pressed his hands to his ears, but it didn't stop. It never would. Back in her office, Maria turned off the light. The rain drummed gently against the window, washing the night clean. Justice had come. Not loud, not vengeful, just precise, just inevitable.